Welcome back, Patriots. Welcome back to Sons of Liberty 1773. This is indeed where men and women from around the world gather in defense of liberty. I am your host, Bill Bailey, who will be channeling the patriotism of America's founding fathers, such as President George Washington, who wrote in his 1789 Thanksgiving Proclamation that we may then unite in most humbly offering our prayers and supplications to the great Lord and ruler of nations, and beseech him to pardon our national and other transgressions, to enable us all, whether in public or private stations, to perform our several relative duties properly and punctually, to render our national government a blessing to all the people by constantly being a government of wise, just, and constitutional laws, discreetly and faithfully executed and obeyed. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Today is November 23rd, 2023, year of our Lord. So let's talk about fascism. Who is a fascist and who isn't? I can tell you who's not a fascist. It's the America First Patriots and the people that vote for Donald Trump, and especially Donald Trump. None of us are fascist or anything close. But the left, they're good. This is a Marxist communist tactic. Get in front of a story by accusing the other side of what you're actually guilty of. No, it's not Biden that should be impeached. It's Trump. Trump should be impeached when we know it's Biden that should be impeached. It's not the Biden crime family. No, it's the Trump crime family. It's evil. They have no problem lying. The ends justify the means, right? So let's listen to this little clip by Morning. I hate to put you through this, folks, but you got to hear where the left is coming from. I do not watch this show. I just want to vomit every time I hear Morning Joe and Mika. But I'm only going to share a little bit of it, but you got to listen. So let me pull this up real quick. Let's see. I'm sorry, folks. I got to lift this up just a second. Hang on. I'll get it. There we go. All right.
But to imprison political opponents, the paper continues. Mr. Trump's rise to power was almost immediately accompanied by debates over whether his ascendancy and that of other leaders around the world with similar political views signaled a revival of fascism. Fascism is generally understood as an authoritarian far-right system of government which hyper-nationalism is a central component. It also often features a cult of personality around a strongman leader, the justification of violence or retribution against opponents, and the repeated denigration of the rule of law, said Peter Hayes, a historian who has studied the rise of fascism. It feels like a history lesson.
Again, go down the list. People say, oh, it's not fascism. And then you go down a list of fascist tendencies of past fascist leaders, and he ticks them all off,
right,
except for one thing. And let's get to that. But keep reading.
Okay, past fascist leaders appealed to a sense of victimhood to justify their actions.
They're all snowflakes.
The idea is we're entitled because we've been victimized. We've been cheated and robbed, he said. One expert who has researched political rhetoric tells the Times that Mr. Trump had wielded language as a chisel to chip away at democratic norms. Normally, a president would use war rhetoric to prepare a nation for war against another nation, she said. Donald Trump uses war rhetoric domestically.
And that, Caddy K, is what's so frightening, that his focus is not in taking over other countries. It's in taking over this country, undermining American democracy.
Because we have a domestic enemy right now, the Communist Democrat Party.
Of the Constitution, calling still for the arresting and the imprisonment of his political opponent, something he did to me as a member of the media, something he did to the Biden family the last 2 weeks of the 2020 campaign, when he was yelling at his attorney general to arrest the entire Biden family.
It's BS. They're trying to put Trump in prison.
And here it is. I mean, the frightening thing is there are far too many Americans who seem disinterested in the degradation, not only of civility, not only of all of the character traits that their parents taught them growing up, that they learn in their communities, that they learn in their churches, but they seem completely disinterested in the fact that the leader they're following, well, he's an autocrat. He's talking like an autocrat, and he has promised.
I can't take listening to the communist. If you caught what he was saying there, he didn't say Trump is actually there. He wasn't saying what fascism is, saying he has the tendencies of a fascist. This is a little, I don't know that I can make the print a lot bigger. Let's see if I can do this really quick so you can kind of see this. Hang on, folks. I think I can fix this. Just give me a second. See if we can get the print a little bigger. There we go. So let's talk about what real fascism is, okay? The real definitions of fascism. So absolute power of the state. Fascist regimes have a strong, centralized state or national government, right? They're totalitarians. The fascist state seeks total control over all major parts of society. Individuals must give up their private needs and rights to serve the needs of the whole society, collectivists, as represented by the state. Ruled by dictator. A single dictator runs the fascist state and makes all the important decisions. The leader often uses charisma, a magnetic personality, to gain the support of the people. Trump's not trying to centralize power. What did he say at his inauguration speech? I'm giving the power back to the people. We're into individual freedoms. We want to dilute power. We want a very small federal government. We want the power with the people. That's as anti-fascist as you get. Corporatism. Fascists believe in taming capitalism by controlling labor and factory owners. Union strikes and other labor actions are illegal. Although private property remains, the state controls the economy. And there's a great definition by one of our community members on that particular note, and I'm going to share it here in a second. Extreme nationalism. The fascist state uses national glory and the fear of outside threats to build a new society based on the common will of the people. Fascists believe in action and looking at national myths for guidance rather than relying on the barren intellectualism of science and reason. Superiority of the nation's people. Fascists, it's like the Third Reich, Hitler, right? Fascists hold up the nation's people as superior to other nationalities. They typically strengthen and unify the dominant group in the nation while stifling dissent and persecuting minority groups. Militarism and imperialism. Fascists believe that great nations show their greatness by conquering and ruling weak nations. We don't want to go over and take over the world. If we were going to do that, we could have did it after World War II. Fascists believe the state can only survive if it successfully proves its military superiority in war. And then let me share this community post. Let me get rid of this real quick. Let me find it here. I'm sorry, I got to run this up real quick. There we go. This is from Matthew Renfro. I like his post. I try to read every comment he ever puts because he's a smart guy. Fascism is when corporations take over the government, right? That's where we are in America. The corporations, these billion-dollar, BlackRock, the other two I can't think of, I think they're trillion-dollar corporations, buying our politicians and controlling the government, getting favorable laws. They are each keeping each other in power. So Matthew says fascism is when corporations basically take over the government, run the government. That's kind of where America is now. Communism is when the government takes over the corporations. So fascism, the corporations are running the government. Communism, the government is running the corporation, the totalitarian state. So I thought that was really just a simple and concise definition. Let me move that. Anyways, MAGA and America First, and the people that believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, God and country. To love America does not make, look at, under their definition, JFK, let me think, Ronald Reagan, George Washington, any of our beloved presidents that really did have a massive following in this country, a cult of personality, they'd be fascist. But the Democrat Party, they are the fascist. I mean, socialist, Marxist, communist, call them what you want. But if anybody's fascist, it ain't us. And by the way, I hope you're sticking with me. I got to share this book with you. I just got it. I'm already halfway through it. I'll have it finished tonight, but I got to share some of this with you and tell you where you can get it. Incredible book on American history. And I'll share it with you shortly. Before I forget. So anyways, I just wanted to, because, and I'll tell you, Steve Bannon, I even posted on a couple of his sites, hoping he would read them. When Morning Mika and Morning Joe and the Democrat communists come out and start calling us what they're guilty of, saying MAGA and Trump, oh my God, he's a fascist, he's a totalitarian, he wants to put his opponents in prison. What side is putting their opponents, trying to put their what side is putting their opponents in prison right now? They're trying to put Trump away for 700 years. I think there's 200 January 6th protesters that exercise their First Amendment rights that are locked up. It ain't us. But I'm going to tell you, they're the ones that deserve to get locked up. And I pray for justice and that they are locked up, like the January 6th committee that just flagrantly lied and doctored evidence and destroyed evidence to put out this narrative that, MAGA was, January 6th was an insurrection. It was just complete bullshit. Let me get rid of this really quick. And then I wanted to pull this up. Trump, we got to love Trump. He made a short video today on Happy Thanksgiving. I just shared it as a short, if you want to see it. But this was his post he made on Truth. Happy Thanksgiving to all, including the racist and incompetent Attorney General of New York State, Letitia Peekaboo James, who has let murder and violent crime flourish and businesses flee, the radical left Trump-hating judge, a psycho Arthur Engoron, who criminally defrauded the state of New York and me by purposely valuing my assets at a tiny fraction of what they are really worth in order to convict me of fraud before even a trial or seeing any proof, and used his political biased and corrupt campaign finance violator, Chief Clerk Allison Greenfield, to sit by his side on the bench and tell him what to do, and crooked Joe Biden, who has weaponized his Department of Justice against his political opponents and allowed our country to go to hell. And all the other radical left lunatics, communists, fascists, Marxists, Democrats, and rhinos who are seriously looking to destroy our country. Have no fear, however. We will win and make America great again. I love our president, and I love him because he's in your face telling the truth. People may not like that, what I just read, but it's true. It's completely true. And I love this picture of Washington. I'm going to put it back up. I want to talk to you about this book, okay? I found this, stumbled upon it. It's called Patriots Day, Concord in Lexington, okay? This book is a reprint of a book printed in the 1800s. And I want to share a part of it. And it's you gotta buy this book. It's a read for everybody. So in celebration of the battles of Lexington and Concord that took place on April 19th, 1775, when the shot was heard round the world, Patriots Day was first proclaimed as a new holiday in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 1894. Today, the holiday is celebrated in 6 states, including Massachusetts. Those others being Maine, Florida, Wisconsin, Connecticut, and North Dakota. But it should be a national holiday. Really should be. So I started reading the small book titled Patriots Day, Concord and Lexington. This is a copy of the original book printed in 1895. Patriots Day, Concord and Lexington takes you back in time and you feel physically present, folks, at Lexington and Concord as the historic battles take place. What I love about this book is the first-person accounts of what actually happened. Veterans of the battles later in their lives were interviewed and their stories recorded, so Americans would always know the truth of what actually transpired, America and the world. Paul Revere even recounts in his own words, folks, what happened that day and where he fled on horse to warn the towns that the British were coming. It's incredible to read Paul Revere's own words telling you what happened. Not third person, second person, but first person. But one anecdote really hit home with me, and I want to share it with you, okay, folks? And I will tell you, there's before I get to that, I just can't recommend this book. It's for your children to read. It's for you to read. It's for every American to read. It should be in every classroom in America. But the guy was talking about the farmers just didn't show up and say, okay, we've all got to gather and fight the British today. They'd been planning. They signed agreements, neighbor to neighbor, written agreements, that if it came to war, they would stand hand in hand and fight. And they did. But it just didn't happen willy-nilly, folks. They put thought into what was happening and the tyranny that was going on. But so when they proclaimed Patriots Day in Massachusetts, the first day, there was a judge that had, when he was young, he's older now, right? It's 1894, if that's what I said, 1895. But when he was young, like 20 years old, he met a veteran that fought at Concord. And he recounts, or he retells this story to the audience there. And this is incredible. I just suck this stuff up, folks. I just love it. So in his address at Concord on the occasion of the new holiday of the 19th of April, Honorable Mellon Chamberlain related in an interview he held 52 years before with Captain Levi Preston. So he'd be like 72 years old at the time he's telling the story, but he's telling you back when he was like 20. He met Captain Levi Preston, who fought at Concord, one of the militiamen who participated in the conflict that opened the Revolution. Judge Chamberlain was then about 21 years of age and began his questions to the veteran. He says, with the assurance of one fresh from the school's histories, with your experience of actually being there, when the shot was heard around the world. Hang on, folks, I got to find my place again. Captain Preston, what made you go to the Concord fight? Was the young man's opening question. The old man bowed, back is bowed, he's feeble now, with the weight of 80 years replied, my history all tell me you men of the Revolution took up arms against intolerable oppression. What was it? Oppression. I didn't feel any of that. I know of. Let me start over that, folks. I just don't want to screw this up because it's really good, okay? Captain Preston, what made you go to the Concord fight? Was the young man's opening question. The old man, bowed with the weight of 80 years and 10, raised himself upright and turning to me said, what did I go for? Yes, I replied. My histories all tell me you men of the Revolution took up arms against intolerable oppressions. What was it? Oppression? I didn't feel any of that, I know of. Were you not oppressed by the Stamp Act? I never saw any stamps. and I always understood that none were ever sold. Well, what about the tea tax? Tea tax? I never drank a drop of the stuff. The boys threw it all overboard. That would be the Sons of Liberty. But I suppose you had been reading Harrington, Sidney, and Locke about the eternal principles of liberty. I never heard of those men, he replied. The only book we had were the Bible, the Catechism, Watts, Psalms and Hymns, and the Almanac. Well then, what was the matter and what did you mean in going to the fight? Young man, he replied, this veteran, what we meant in fighting the British was this. We always had been free, and we meant to be free always. Isn't that incredible? I just love that. That's what brought this man to the battlefield. He was living a free life, and no one was going to take it from him. And there's poems in the back of this, folks, that people wrote, young and old, about Lexington and Concord, and they're absolutely wonderful. I've read some of them. There's a story, first-person account by a Minuteman that was there. And the British were vicious, by the way. Gates said to scalp the colonist and cut their ears off. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm going to leave the link as a pinned comment. This book is like $9 and some change. I think it's free shipping if you have Prime. It's just a wonderful read. There's illustrations. Let's see if I can find a couple of Lexington and Concord. There's just, let's see if I can find one really quick. Really kind of a nice one. You can see something. Let's see. There we go. There's one. But there's these great pictures that really show you what the scenery looked like then, and there's maps, and I know you'll enjoy it. And some great stories of what happened. Women that were fighting, and I will tell you that the British were absolutely horrified that a bunch of farmers kicked their ass. They didn't want to believe it. I mean, they just said there ain't no way. I mean, it's just no way did a bunch of farmers, farmers that fought in the French Indian War and were actually, battle-hardened people, many of them, kicked the British regulars' asses, and they were horrified. But what I love about this book, too, it's not woke, right? It's a reprint of a book printed in the 1800s. There is no woke in it. You get facts, true history, and we have to keep books like this alive so they can never be perverted and adulterated by the left. And I think this little publishing company, it's called, this I'll just read to you what's in the front cover here. This book is an exact reproduction of this wonderful little book published in 1895 as we could produce. You will find words spelled and hyphenated the way they are in the original. And back then they did hyphenate men. It's not one word like it is today. You will find words spelled in, our goal at Battle Road Books is to keep the history of the Revolutionary War alive and vibrant and easily accessible. We also don't think you should pay an arm and a leg just to read these old books. We hope you'll treasure this book like we do. Dan and Jack's Bubix, Battle Road Books, but fun. Do yourself a favor and buy the book. You will share it. I mean, I'm tempted. I may buy a few of these copies. This is like a book you stop by and see the history teacher at your public schools. Say, hey, you mind if I give you a book that maybe you could share some stories with your classroom about, history book, Patriots Day? That's the way you get around the woke textbooks. We'll just, drop off the real stuff, the truth. Anyways, folks, I would like to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody again, especially our deployed men and women that are all around the world, right? That aren't going to be home with their wife or husbands or children or mom and dad, their friends and relatives. but they're on a foreign battlefield or a ship, or just stationed somewhere in the world. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone, especially our deployed men and women in the military that can't be home with their friends and family today. May God warm their hearts, comfort them, and keep them safe. You as well. Keep praying and keep prepping. God bless America. Until next time, Sons of Liberty out. See you guys.